Ari Melber, who hosts the 6 p.m. Eastern Time hour on this network, has been watching and listening with us, having been part of our initial coverage low those many hours ago this morning. Ari, your takeaways.
I think it's very clear that the Democrats set out to put a little more meat on the bone of those infamous text messages, and I thought particularly their lawyer, Daniel Goldman, was effective at doing that, because that record, from the standpoint of the prosecution and the potential articles of impeachment if Congress writes them, is the contemporaneous account. It is, as some of your guests just mentioned, Trump's own appointees saying, this is crazy, I don't want to be a part of this. Bolton's testimony, not in a text, but again, a real-time objection. And so it's very important to remember today is one piece of that case. Some of the questions that came from Republicans said, well, you didn't see this, or who else saw this, or how do you know? And one of the answers anytime you put together a case is, okay, this was two people's testimony as fact witnesses. There will be others. And things that are attested to by more than one person tend to be considered more corroborated. So I thought on the references to the investigations, to what the money was conditioned on, to what John Bolton objected to being cooked up as a, quote, drug deal, to what crazy meant in Ambassador Taylor, I thought all of that was well done. I did think that as a stylistic matter, some of the Republican questioning landed a few blows, Brian, because it tried to argue not a legal case, but a more of a larger kind of a so what. What really happened? What really went wrong here? What was the specific harm? And the answer to that question might take more time to answer. The Democrats and witnesses laid it out, and there is harm, and I think our analysts have as well. But stylistically, you see that in trials as well. It's not saying nothing happened. It's poking holes in how bad it was. And again, this is not a criminal trial. So there may be people who say, yeah, did it rise the level of removal, and do those points cut against convicting the president in a Senate trial?
Ari Melber, thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.